How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do a contract called Closing the Circuit. For this one I've got to deliver 2 lots of medium logs, and I'm on the Heartlands map, and yeah, it's not too much of a bad mission. In the end I'm going to do, like, take one set of logs and then double back on myself, so setting off from the Heartlands garage down to the log station, because the first lot I've got to deliver there, and the second lot's like right at the top of the map, but I'd rather use the route I've drawn instead of going like along the roads that are sort of more to the left of the map. And I wanted to try climbing over these islands just to see if it was possible. And yeah, just doing it that way, it saved having to go up to the trailer store to go and get a medium log trailer. That they're a little bit sketchy anyway. They're a bit boaty and tippy and all the rest of it. So yeah, as it wasn't that far from the log station, I figured I'd do it that way around. And then yeah, for this one I'm taking out the Voron D, this one's called, some code name, phone number at the end of it, and a goddamn horse, of course. For some reason, I think I mentioned it before, but you used to be able to pack, well, I've only really tried with loafs, but scouts, like loafs, in the actual medium log thing that sits on the back, but for whatever reason, I think since this phase, it just doesn't work anymore, so I don't know what the deal is with that, but we're all good. Stuck a winch onto the loaf, so he isn't going anywhere. And yeah, for this mission I was kind of umming and ahhing between using the Voron D or the Voron AE or the Taiga, the newer one. I think I called it Tony the Taiga. Again, can't remember the code name that one's got. In the end I went for this one because I was curious to see. I used it a little while back on a mission. I think it was on Crossroads, and it was quite a simple drive. And this thing felt alright, and as it's got like a special custom gearbox, yeah, I also get like the low range gears. The high gear's not as fast as normal, but I just wanted to see if the gearbox would kind of suit this map, this mission, kind of like pretty boggy roads. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I don't know. Looking back, I might have probably would have been a little bit quicker maybe to use the Voron AE, as I can just have the normal high range gearbox in. So I wouldn't have any of the low ranges though, but I think I could kind of make up for that. I'd have the single low range, so I could get away with that worst case, but yeah, I'd have the high range to kind of drop the hammer, get a bit of a move on down these kind of roads. This road generally from the garage, as you more head towards like the rail yard, which is pretty close to where the log station is, this road's not too bad. It mostly lets you stay in high gear. It gets a little bit kind of brutal after this, sort of where I think they've coded it as more like super mud. This feels pretty normal. It's just like the actual ruts in the road are pretty deep, so it does get boggy in certain places. Almost looked like I was tipping there. I even put the dual rear tyres on because it's actually an option on this. They're chained, but yeah, you can have obviously like all the muds, the single sort of tyres, but yeah, it actually lets you have dual rear tyres. So I figured, because I know when I take the logs, it's always a little bit on the boaty side. I didn't even try this time to see if it let me pack the logs. I know it did a while back when, I think I did it on the live stream, but it let me pack the logs when the loaf was in there and he was just kind of like phased into the middle of the logs, which kept him in there pretty well. And yeah, got a roof rack and fuel supplies pretty close by with that. So like I say, I'm just going to nip those logs down to that and then like head back here. So I figured I should be able to survive a few minutes without my goddamn horse. I could have towed it behind me. There's no particular reason not to, I suppose. I just thought I'll be back in a minute. What could possibly go wrong? As I'm getting around to this section, it looks like it leans a little bit, but it didn't seem too bad. I don't know if I caught something, or I don't know. Started to go, fired a panic winch out, but it was too late and it didn't really do a lot anyway. And then sadly, I had to watch that one log just roll out. I wish there was like a little lip on the top of these medium log cage things, just so at least when you roll it, because I don't think there's like any vehicle anymore. Maybe that Aramatsu, whatever the hell it's called, some Japanese toaster sounding thing, that you can have like the medium log carriage thing, whatever it's called at the back, the add-on, and the log crane. I even pretty slowly because of the loading times these days, loaded over to the Burning Mill map so I could go and buy some American vehicles, because I was going to see if the Paystar, like the newer one, we've got the sort of longer one that can have like a 3 slot side bed and all that, to see if that could have like the crane and the medium log carriage, but it can't. It'll only let you have the small one and the log crane. As soon as you choose the medium one, it just kind of gets rid of the crane, so that's why I sort of scrapped that idea in the end and just went for one of these. But yeah, that's like, there's not really any decent setups. I mean, obviously you could have a log crane if you took like a medium log trailer, but those things are incredibly boaty. Yeah, descending the goddamn horse. He saved me bacon as usual. I knew I'd have to go back to the log store thing, but I just wanted to see. I just needed to see it tell me. Not enough cargo. So yeah, I just drove back up to the top of the hill, loaded some more logs, and we'll try again since, well, there you go. I made it, what, like 30 seconds, if that, without me life, and already had to send him in to save me. So I'll go a little bit wider this time, not let it lean quite as much. And yeah, it was sort of around now. I mean, again, this vehicle certainly wasn't terrible by any means. The reason I ended up kind of picking between the Vorons was the tyres are 50-inch tyres when you put like the biggest size on, which is pretty decent, especially for like the overall size of the vehicle. To be fair, I do think that newer Tayga also has probably around 50-inch tyres on it. Yeah, this thing though, I don't really know if it's like engine power or the gearbox. I think when I was going through them, it said the Voron AE had more power, but that was like before they're upgraded. So once I upgraded them, I think they both have the same engine when they're fully upgraded, and I'm pretty sure they were both S Plus on the power as well. So, but who knows past that? I mean, if it was the case, then I assume that technically means this would weigh more if they've got the same engine, but the power to weight's less on this. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like the overall power of the truck, or if it's just this special off-road gearbox wasn't quite, I don't know. Just, you can see there, like, for example, it doesn't really give you a hell of a lot of like revs and power before it throws in the towel in certain situations. Once you actually get it wound up, going up to speed in high gear, it's not too bad. I mean, at least as a saving grace, it does have the 3 low range options, so usually high-low. It's not rapid, but it at least applies a decent amount of torque, and it'll never do like the stalling thing and all that sort of stuff. I didn't realise as well, this thing, oh yeah, that sign. I was hoping it wasn't like a unkillable sign, and just as I hit it, I honked the horn, and yeah, the sign went flying. But anyway, yeah, got those logs dropped off, so like I said, not too far to go. Yeah, I was going to say with this vehicle, I didn't realise it still have that like weird chirpy bird sound when you change gear on it. I used it the other week, I don't even remember hearing it. Maybe I had my TV turned down really low, I can't remember, but yeah, it still does it. It doesn't feel as annoying now, but because I spend a lot of the time in high range, I suppose it's not really changing gear as much, so I don't hear it very often. But when it first did it, especially through the headset and stuff, I thought it was the birds that are living in my roof. I kept hearing the chirpy noise, and yeah, I kept pausing the game and thinking, what the hell is that? What are the birds doing? And then yeah, eventually it dawned on me that it is this truck. That's case in point why I don't like the scrapyards. Too many stupid hitboxes on them. Like invisible hitboxes, so it doesn't even look like the stuff you're hitting. And you can see, to be fair, I was going to just cut across the grass, but I kind of figured I'd go back this roadway, because now I've just drove down here with logs, and now I'm going back without. And yeah, again, like once you get into high gear and you're up to speed, it's not too bad, but this vehicle's struggling a little bit more than I thought. At least places like that, though, the fact that it has got 50-inch tyres and all the rest of it, it does sit high enough that it can drive over stuff like that. I've gone over there with a few trucks that sort of beach themselves on little bits like that. I didn't really find either in the end that the dual rear tyres really did a hell of a lot. I thought they'd help a lot more with the tippiness. I don't know if or how much more difficult this would have been with normal tyres, but I tend to find like the single track tyres are kind of better because they go down the ruts in the road a bit easier. These kind of like sit either side of it and you don't necessarily get as much grip. Yeah, I fired a winch out, tried to like Spider-Man swing my way around to tighten the turning circle up a bit, but it was not to be. Kind of yanked me sideways and I rolled over. So again, think this is the second time so far to send in the goddamn professional. Good job I brought him. That's why I never leave home without one. Already, twice I would have had to have either recovered to the garage, started the video again, or sent some kind of rescue vehicle out from the garage to, yeah, flip this thing over when it tipped the logs, and now here. To be fair, this one was more me just kind of messing around and I cocked it up a bit. And then now, the annoying thing is the vehicle, I think when I tipped it the first time it was kind of dug into the road, but as you can see now, instead of tipping the vehicle it just kind of swings around all the time, which was a little bit annoying. Oh yeah, also I put the autonomous winch on the Lo4f, which I rarely do. I normally prefer the advanced winch for various reasons. It just feels like it's got more power. The old school winches used to have great amounts of power to where the autonomous had less, but it still didn't really matter in the scheme of things. And obviously you got more reach and everything with the normal winch. Because I'm going to cross those islands later on, I was thinking of like I might possibly need to zombie winch, so an autonomous would have been handy. If the river goes too deep, I can still zombie winch even if I turn the Lo4f's engine off. And you can see there, Lo4f climbed over the tree stump, squeezed his way through the gap. That's what she said. And then yeah, now it's a perfect example of like the winches these days. You see it start to pull the truck, and then it just completely gives up. So I think at this point I even turned my TV up just to make sure I could hear the winch retraction noise. And I noticed eventually it was moving extremely slowly, but yeah, this is how like gutless the winches are these days, particularly the autonomous one. It gives up too easy. Back in the day, like when this game first came out, they'd just keep building tension. So even if you had a vehicle that was kind of like rolled, wedged behind a tree and all sorts, if you wedged like the Lo4f, for example, behind another tree and just kept pulling, it eventually either snapped the tree or the truck would like ping around it and all sorts. It was pretty good though, because it was handy for like actually being able to do rescues. Whereas yeah, these days sometimes it's not necessarily that you couldn't do the rescue, it's just the whatever mechanics is going on with the winches. Yeah, they're just gutless. But yeah, long story short, the Lo4f did save me bacon again, so we're off. I wanted to kill that tree and just give it a glance in below, but I missed it. I'll consider it a warning shot. And at this point, I remember going through here last time, there's roots going along the middle of the track, which I'm kind of bumping across now. And to be honest, even though it did stop me for a minute, I was kind of glad this happened, because you can see with the Lo4f, I think he's had enough of the roots as well. It kind of ripped the whole thing out of the ground, and it's actually like probably getting on for about the length of the Lo4f. It's going all the way through the cab into the back of the Lo4f. And yeah, that's not like a dead tree laying across the road. That is the roots that are normally buried in the road, but as your tyres go across them, they usually get snagged and bumped and all sorts. And as you can see, it was hanging on pretty well. But we got out of there. Yeah, it was just quite nice to see that I actually got caught on the Lo4f, and I've said it for a while that they added those roots in a while back, particularly when I noticed was on that Northport, where when I do the review videos, crossing over from like the main road towards the petrol station, where I've got like my trailer park with I don't know, 60 or 70 trailers scattered all over the place now. Yeah, there's a route they added like across that little cut through I use, and it was kind of messing up. I don't know, that was quite a good test of like super mud, sort of back then. It was one of like the original super mud places, and yeah, ever since they put those routes in, it kind of snagged a few vehicles up even more so, and kind of made them look like it was struggling more across there. But yeah, I've had my suspicions about these routes being added to the map for a while, and that was a pretty good example of how much you can actually get snagged on them, and the fact that they're actually pretty massive. They're just kind of, for the most part, buried in the ground. Kind of seen that happening in slow motion. I had to kind of steer out of it a bit because this thing gets a bit boaty, which case in point right now. Yeah, you can see the dual rear tyres don't really feel like they're helping me as much as I was hoping. Thankfully though, the third log, it started to roll out of the medium log add-on thing, but it didn't quite go, which means I'm all good. I won't have to go back to the trailer store. I might have even used the quit and reload method at the minute, if that happened. And again, look at the winch, it starts to pull it, it's going fine, and it just completely runs out of power. I think it was moving it really slowly, but slower than I wanted, so I detached the winch, like reattached it, the truck moved a bit, but then I decided I've got it tipped enough to where I can, you know, press square to start the engine, and then I'm just kind of like making the vehicle keep reversing here and there, and sort of managed to jiggle the weight around a bit. We got it tipped, goddamn horse. I was worried there when I clicked like to pack the logs again, it was just going to tip straight back over, but we're all good. Yeah, as I was going through, we need more like, I don't know, kind of slightly bigger vehicles that sit a bit wider for doing the logging in this game. And various vehicles like the Zik 605R, that can have a small log cage add-on thing on it, but it can't have the medium one. There's quite a few actually that can't have the medium one. And yeah, to a degree I sort of try and mix and match the trucks a little bit, but you're kind of pretty limited with the logging. Although some part of me, I do actually like doing the logging missions, even though it is pretty trollish these days, but I don't know, for whatever reason. Maybe it's nostalgia from doing it back on MudRunner, but yeah, when it's going right, it's good. Like I say, not too keen on the medium log trailers, hence why I'll avoid them if I can. Well, it depends on the map. When we got the logging, like on the Wisconsin map, I think it was on phase 3, I don't know, overall it felt like it sort of worked out pretty well, and yeah, I quite enjoyed the logging missions on that. And I think even in my sort of live stream modded playthrough, on just about every map I think I've done all the logging missions, because they're just, I think to be fair, they're, in the scheme of things, they're generally simple maps as well, where like you've got to go somewhere and get the logs, take them somewhere. The challenge is kind of the fact that the weight sits really high and it's quite boaty and all the rest of it, but there's not too much faffing around. It's not like you have to go and craft logs and do all that sort of stuff. And at least these days, we don't seem to have like cargo limits in any of the warehouses or log stations, whatever they're called these days. I see why they did it in theory, but yeah, in the scheme of things it was, I don't know, a bit of faffing around. It's a little bit like the cargo crafting. It's a nice idea in theory. It's not the end of the world, but it's a little bit faffy, particularly the generators, the fact that you've got to keep turning them on. Once you turn them on, they should just stay on forever. It'd be a lot nicer. This goddamn horse with a Tiger. Yeah, you can even see now, like with the gearbox, it was really struggling there. I think this road is kind of extra coded to be awkward. It certainly doesn't really behave like a normal road, but in the end I was better off just sticking it in high gear, because this thing, I think the special gearbox has only got 4 gears, so in theory I thought, well, the way this game keeps kind of cock blocking the high range gearbox, where it won't let you go, or rarely let you go above like 5th gear, yeah, as this has only got 4 gears it should have been alright, but then it was kind of making me stick between 2nd and 3rd, so whatever they've done, it doesn't seem to be good for any gearbox. Yeah, just heard that little chirpy bird noise again. Again, it's not doing it too often, although there I was just pinned, yeah, flat out in high gear, so I don't know why it's doing it. I'm not like blipping the throttle or anything like that. And then yeah, at this point, if I wanted to, I could sort of cross the river up ahead of me and go the normal way, but I was curious about going this way. Even though I know the river goes pretty deep across certain sections here, yeah, because you've got those 2 islands, it's like, I was hoping that it wouldn't be too bad between them, but again, that's why I brought the Lo for the main reason, even though like fuel repairs, general, goddamn professional. But yeah, like the autonomous winch, so if I did get to a point where I've kind of drowned the vehicle, at least I had the option of just, with the autonomous winch, attaching it to the vehicle, doing the zombie winch, and yeah, even if the water's too deep, it'll still go through there without killing the Lo4f engine. I was quite lucky there as well. Just as I was pulling up, the saving cogs appeared, so I kind of knew at this point if I quit and reload, I'll load back up just there, which was quite nice to know. So set off in high gear. It was not going too well. I was like, right, just go in high-low. It's a little bit slower, but at least I'll always have my revs and it won't keep trying to stall me. Swerved off to the left because I seen a dead tree line across the road. I didn't want to get caught on the roots of that. Then yeah, so I suppose this is kind of like the first island. I didn't know at this point. I was trying to eyeball it from there. It looked like it was doable. I could see the currents going from left to right, hence why I'm sort of going on the diagonal a little bit. And it actually went pretty nicely. Not only that, this vehicle has quite a nice sound at this point, where it was sounding quite nice and high on the revs, like it was putting in some effort. And yeah, it was pretty good. That's what I've said before. Like certain river crossings, they just make them far too deep to where it's just never going to happen. But when you find little bits that sort of work out quite nicely like that, I'd much rather tackle yeah, just crossings like that and kind of take your time, go the right angle with the way the current's going, and we made it over there. Well, that was the first section. See, now the second bit, and I was even thinking now it looks like it goes a bit deeper. That's what she said. And then yeah, thing just nosedived face first, immediately stalled. So, and then the current started carrying me over, and she was a goner. And yeah, at this point, quit and reload method was pretty handy. But to be fair, I could send like a rescue vehicle and all that, but that's times like this where I like the quit and reload method, where it's not about just necessarily saving time. I do want to reattempt the crossing I was doing, try and figure out which way works in the end, so I cut back a little bit. One thing I forgot to do this time that I did last time was I used the roof rack fuel on the Lo4f, and yeah, filled the Voron D back up, so I was fine, whereas this time, just after loading the game back up and everything, I forgot to do that, so I didn't notice at this point, but as you can see in the bottom left, my fuel is on the red. But again, pretty nice crossing. And then this time I went diagonal, one because of the current, two because I wanted to get that little waypoint thing I'd put. But yeah, that end of the island seemed like it just went pretty deep in the water. There wasn't really much hope of crossing there, so I cut across the middle of the island. I was surprised that stupid little tree there just stopped me dead. Maybe it's because I just caught it on the edge of the bumper. I would have thought this truck, especially with like the weight of medium logs on it as well, should have mowed that tree down really. Again, we'll have to put it on the list for later. And yeah, it was looking a lot better here because all these little like mini islands in the middle, even though it still does go pretty deep for how close all these islands are together. And again, yeah, headlight with the current, because it's actually pretty strong in this kind of section of the river. And you see now, you'd think, oh, this will be just a mere puddle, but yeah, it went pretty bloody deep. Again, that's definitely what she said. But yeah, we're getting up to like, what, 37 damage on the snorkel, so that was quite a bit lower than the snorkel. The Lo4f's giving me a little Lo4f boost. And thankfully, because I was starting to tip a little bit with the current, and it was about now the truck started doing like the low fuel jiggly tyre, like no power thing, which is a bit harsh to be honest. I think it started when I was on 12 litres left, which, let's be honest, 12 litres, if you had 12 litres of fuel in a truck, I'd be pretty pissed off if it started doing the jiggly no fuel shake. Yeah, just quickly borrowed some off the Lo4f, didn't use its roof rack because I'd have to switch to the Lo4f to access the roof rack, so I just borrowed some from the Lo4f himself. I think he had one litre left for himself, so he's not greedy. He sips his fuel. And then yeah, after I crossed the river I was kind of going to just switch the Lo4f, sort the fuel out and everything, but then I realised the checkpoint is only just up here. It's a bit of an odd place to put it, I've got to be honest, just kind of like 2/3 on the edge of a field, partly in the sunflowers. I don't really need much of an excuse to run them over, but yeah, it's a bit of a odd random place. Drop them off. No animation going or anything, it just says power grid restored. Didn't even like build some new telegraph poles or anything. There's another goddamn horse from a previous mission where he helping me get the old the hay bales. And yeah, I think it's about, was it 5,500 for the mission, so not too bad. Like I say, in the end this truck did alright. It helped when I got over that islands in the end. That sort of worked out quite nicely. Like I say, maybe if I was going to do it again I'd take the Voron AE, just have like a normal gearbox. But yeah, apart from that we got it done. And yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, thanks for Patreon members. Get yourself a Lo4f because he's a goddamn professional, and I'll be back soon.